Magento users are urged to patch as risk of exploitation rises. Toyota experiences another cyber attack, and some observers blame, on grounds of motive, opportunity, and track record, OceanLotus. Exodus spyware in the Google Play Store looks like a case of lawful intercept tools getting loose. Moscow seeks to control and limit VPN providers. Mr. Zuckerberg wants regulation. Mr. Barriss gets 20 years for swatting. And hey, there's phishing tackle on the Nigerian National Assembly's site. Now a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Observit. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys. Your employees, contractors, and privileged users. In fact, a whopping 60% of online attacks today are carried out by insiders. Can you afford to ignore this real and growing threat? With Observit, you don't have to. See, most security tools only analyze computer, network, or system data. But to stop insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observit combats insider threats by enabling your security team to detect risky activity, investigate in minutes, effectively respond, and stop data loss. Want to see it in action for yourself? Try Observit for free. No installation required. Go to observit.com/cyberwire. That's observit.com/cyberwire. And we thank Observit for sponsoring our show. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, April 1st, 2019. As the risk of Magento e-commerce software exploitation rises, experts recommend immediate patching. Magento has made patches available, and users of its products should apply them. We note that last Friday we carelessly referred to Magento as Magneto, which of course it is not. Magento is an e-commerce platform. Magneto is a mutant supervillain and founder of Factor 3, as Professor Charles Xavier would have told our e-commerce desk had they asked him. Toyota disclosed Friday that attackers had accessed customer sales data on its servers in Japan. There's no attribution yet, but speculation has turned toward Vietnamese threat group APT-32, also known as OceanLotus. There have been multiple reports since February that Vietnam's government has been engaged in a campaign of industrial espionage aimed at giving its incipient domestic automobile industry a leg up. Toyota's operations in Vietnam may also have been hit in this most recent wave of attacks. The carmaker's Australian subsidiary sustained an attack earlier in March. We heard from Lucy Securities CEO Colin Bastable about the latest incident. He said, quote, "I expect that Toyota's Japanese customers are collateral damage in an attempt to steal Toyota's intellectual property," end quote. Noting how widespread industrial espionage has become, Bastable added, quote, "All businesses which hold valuable IP should assume that they will be attacked. Unfortunately, businesses seem incapable of learning from others' experiences and must become victims in order to adapt," end quote. Independent security researchers posting their results to Security Without Borders say they've found more Android apps fronting for spyware. The apps represent themselves as mobile operators' service applications, and they appear to have been written in and probably largely for an Italian market. The researchers perceive connections between the intercept agent, which they're calling Exodus, and Italian company eServe, which is based in the southern Italian city of Catanzaro and specializes in video management and analytics. The spyware's command and control server is apparently identical to one used to manage eServe surveillance cameras. Motherboard calls Exodus a case of lawful intercept gone wrong, and they think eServe may have developed it for Italian police, but neither the company nor the police have responded to their inquiries. It's worth noting that there is such a thing as a lawful intercept tool. It's spyware used, ideally, in a carefully restricted and overseen law enforcement investigation. Think of it as a legal wiretap, only done over the internet and mobile telecom networks, a modern version of getting a court order to put a bug on a phone. The problem here is that if indeed Exodus is the lawful intercept tool many say it appears to be, it's scooping up a lot of quite innocent people's devices and data. There's other issues here as well. the difficulty of controlling what gets into even the walled garden of official app stores. We heard from Will LaSala of OneSpan, who emailed to point out that, quote, "This underscores that relying on Google or Apple to detect malicious apps is not a safe idea. Customers should look to protect their own apps with app shielding rather than look toward the platform vendors for increased security," end quote. It's easy, he said, for platform vendors to err on the side of convenience. Quote, "As such, app developers and companies deploying apps really need to take security into their own hands to ensure their users are protected," end quote. The Russian government has served 10 VPN providers with notice that they have 30 days to connect their services to a government blacklist of forbidden sites or cease operations. The companies who got the letter were NordVPN, Hide My Ass, Ola VPN, OpenVPN, Viper VPN, ExpressVPN, TorGuard, IPVanish, Kaspersky Secure Connection, and VPN Unlimited. 4 of these, TorGuard, Viper VPN, OpenVPN, and NordVPN, have already stated their intention of exiting the Russian market rather than comply. The Russian government had earlier put the strong arm on search engines to align their results with official policy. Moscow says that they're simply trying to secure the freedom of the Internet and not censor it, but that explanation finds few takers. Facebook CEO Zuckerberg has an op-ed in the Washington Post in which he asks governments to regulate him. First, he'd like to be told what content he needs to block. Second, he wants election laws to be more broadly applied and to regulate content about issues as well as content about candidates. Third, he likes GDPR and thinks it might serve as a model for a global system of privacy enforcement. Finally, he wants data portability guaranteed. If users put data on one service, they ought to be able to move it to another. His proposal isn't really rent-seeking, but it's obvious how laws like this would be good for Facebook. They would certainly shift regulatory and reputational risk from Facebook to the government. It's less obvious how such regulation would be received by those with strong First Amendment sensibilities, but then that's not really big tech's concern. Tyler Barriss has been sentenced to 20 years in a U.S. federal prison for his admitted role in Andrew Finch's December 2017 swatting death. Barriss's 2 alleged conspirators, Shane Gaskill and Casey Viner, will have their own fate decided later. They have both protested their innocence. This was an unusually repellent case that put all the Internet's sadly familiar disinhibition and disconnection from reality on display. It's worth reviewing what happened. Mr. Viner, 18 years old at the time, allegedly asked Mr. Barriss to swat Mr. Gaskill, then age 19, in his Wichita, Kansas home. Viner and Gaskill were engaged at the time in an online squabble prompted by their play of Call of Duty. Mr. Gaskill provided the wrong address and then, the government alleges, goaded Mr. Barriss into swatting him. So Mr. Barriss called 911 from his home in California, pretending to be an armed man holding his family hostage, and gave police the address he'd received. When the police showed up, the door was answered by the man who lived there with his family, Andrew Finch, and who had no acquaintance with and no connection to any of the 3 involved in the Call of Duty affair of honor. Police shot Finch in the mistaken belief that he was armed and going for his gun, which of course he wasn't. Mr. Barriss said he was sorry in court Friday, but that remorse seems both late and thin, especially given what he did last April when he gained Internet access from jail, broadcasting, "You are about to get swatted." And finally, Bleeping Computer may have called it ironic, but it somehow seems inevitable. The website of the Nigerian National Assembly for about 2 weeks was serving up a landing page for phishing attacks that were after DHL credentials. Needless to say, it wasn't government policy to host this phishing tackle. Now a moment to tell you about our sponsor, ThreatConnect. Designed by analysts but built for the entire team, ThreatConnect's intelligence-driven security operations platform is the only solution available today with intelligence, automation, analytics, and workflows in a single platform. Every day, organizations worldwide use ThreatConnect as the center of their security operations to detect, respond, remediate, and automate. With all of your knowledge in one place, enhanced by intelligence, enriched with analytics, driven by workflows, you'll dramatically improve the effectiveness of every member of the team. Want to learn more? Check out their newest ebook, SOAR Platforms. Everything you need to know about security, orchestration, automation, and response. The book talks about intelligence-driven orchestration, decreasing time to response and remediation with SOAR, and ends with a checklist for a complete SOAR solution. Download it at threatconnect.com/cyberwire. That's threatconnect.com/cyberwire. And we thank ThreatConnect for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Joe Carrigan. He's from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. He is also my co-host on the Hacking Humans podcast. Joe, it's great to have you back.
Hi, Dave.
A story came by recently about an app that turned out was up to no good. Describe to us what's going on here.
The app was called MobiSpy,
okay.
And it's one of these apps that ostensibly is for users to install on their children's phones to monitor where they are, or possibly for an employer to install on their phones to monitor the location of their phones. But in actuality, what these apps are usually used for is by abusive spouses to track the location and the activity on the phones of their partners.
I see.
Okay. So this MobiSpy app would store data in the cloud, and it left 95,000 images and more than 25,000 audio recordings of presumably phone calls accessible to anybody who knew where they were.
So so no login, this is an unlocked bucket of information that was just hung out there,
and
no security whatsoever.
No authentication, and the location of the database was hard-coded into the app.
Wow.
So you could extract it and then start looking at the data on the website, on the cloud, on the database.
Now, there's a story here about the attempts for a responsible disclosure with this,
correct.
Right?
The researcher was Kane Heasley, who found the server, and he reached out to MobiSpy to try to get them to seal up the breach, and got no response from their CEO and founder. Nothing. And then he reached out to Motherboard, and Motherboard was like, well, how else can we address this? They reached out to GoDaddy and to Codero, who was the cloud hoster. Codero was a cloud hoster.
Yeah.
Who said they couldn't do anything. So Motherboard did the next responsible step, and they publicized the information. Now, they did not publicize the name of the app because that would represent too much of a risk to the people whose data was exposed.
Okay.
But they did name Codera and GoDaddy in the original app. And then, guess what? Codera said, oh, maybe we can help you.
So the hosting provider.
Right, the hosting provider who initially said, no, we can't do anything about it. Well, now that you've talked about us in the public, okay, we're going to do something about it.
They sort of got shamed into it, I
Right,
guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
They issued a letter to MobiSpy with a deadline of hours, not days, and MobiSpy did not respond. They eventually took the content down and made it no longer accessible.
Huh.
The MobiSpy app is no longer, I can't find it in the Google Play Store at all. According to the Motherboard article, the website's gone and everything. But this irritates me.
Yeah, it's close to home for you, right?
Yeah, there is a number of issues going on here.
Okay.
Number one, you don't need these kind of apps. Okay, if I want to know where the location of my family is, I share my location on Google Maps with my family. In fact, I do that, so I can tell where my family is, and they can tell where I am.
But they're aware that they're sharing that
they're
information.
Aware. Not only are they aware of it, but every 6 months or 3 months, Google sends you an email to let you know who you're sharing your information with.
Right. So you've got consent there.
So you've got not just consent, but continual consent. And
okay.
So there is no need for this kind of a tracking app on a phone.
Okay. You're covered in other ways.
You're covered in other ways.
Both of the popular operating systems.
The only reason for these apps to exist is for people to be abusive to other people.
Okay.
This is my opinion, but I really don't think that these apps have a legitimate purpose.
Right. So not a fan.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing in here, and this is something I find very frustrating. One of my roles is vulnerability disclosure manager at the Information Security Institute.
At Johns Hopkins.
At Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
And frequently, when we disclose vulnerabilities, I send a package over to a lot of these companies, and I've sent packages to companies, and I have said, who do I disclose software vulnerabilities to? And they go, I don't know.
So you're the guy who has to send this out and try to give them the good news, bad news.
Right. Bad news, we found a vulnerability. Good news, here's how you fix it.
We're coming to you first.
Right.
Yeah.
We're coming to you first because we're going to responsibly disclose this, just like Kane did here.
Yeah.
I like what the process that Kane Hazley and Motherboard did.
Right.
But frequently when I disclose vulnerabilities to people, we tell them you have 14 days to respond or we're going to go public with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we tell them you have 14 days is because the first couple of times we did it, we said you have a 90-day window in which to fix this, and we'll disclose it after that. And we heard nothing back. So we tell people 14 days so that...
So you're using a little social engineering here to turn up the heat.
Exactly. We tell people 14 days, and they go, whoa, we can't fix this in 14 days. Then we say, oh, good. Okay, how long do you need?
Right.
How long do you need?
So at least
Let's discuss it.
You get a response from them.
Right.
Because you inject that sense of urgency.
Right. We give them an artificial time constraint. Right. Although it's not really artificial. We will release the data in 14 days if we don't hear back from them.
I see.
But I do want to reiterate that if they so much as respond to us during that 14-day period, then we start a conversation immediately. And if they ask for any amount of time, we'll grant it.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you 2 years.
Right.
But
you're going to be reasonable about it.
Yeah, we're going to be reasonable. If you say we need 90 days to fix this, we need 6 months to fix it, okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. As long as we're credited with finding the bug, we're fine with that.
Yeah. Just don't stick your head in the sand.
Yeah, don't stick your head in the sand.
All right. Well, another one of those sad stories we see playing out here with people's personal information just being hung out there, and maybe a lesson about using these types of apps.
It seems the only way to get these companies to do something is to publicly shame them.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is a shame. It is a shame.
All right. Well, Joe Carrigan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Dave.
And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our CyberWire Daily News Brief at thecyberwire.com. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, Observit, the leading insider threat management platform. Learn more at observit.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security Ha. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. And check out the Recorded Future podcast, which I also host. The subject there is threat intelligence, and every week we talk to interesting people about timely cybersecurity topics. That's at recordedfuture.com/podcast. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technology. Our CyberWire editor is John Petrick, social media editor Jennifer Iben, technical editor Chris Russell, our staff writer is Tim Nodar, executive editor Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.